Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. So today we're coming back to Bystial Spright Synchro. As I've mentioned a lot recently in the past week, I've been trying very hard to ladder up to Diamond 5 with mostly this deck, but I also played Pure Spright a little bit, as I mentioned in yesterday's video as well. Well, I'll show you that I did finally make it up to Master rank, so that is a pretty huge relief to not have to worry about that. Now I can start the next season in Diamond, get up to Master rank a lot more quickly because I won't have to go through Plat and Diamond, and then maybe next season we can try to go for a Master 1 climb. We do still have a week left, like it's definitely not impossible, but it's not something I'm going to be spending too much of my time trying to do for this last week here. So we did mostly do the climb with Bystial Spright Synchro. Basically, the way that it ended up panning out was I played this deck from Diamond 5 to Diamond 2. Around Diamond 2, I decided to switch to Pure Spright for something a little more consistent. With that, I actually ended up going up to Diamond 1 and getting to my rank up match a total of 7 times before I finally won it and got up to Master 5, which is definitely the most I've had to do that in any given season. We did actually switch back over to Bystial Spright Synchro for a little bit because I was just tired of Pure Spright and I wanted to play this deck some more. That was in Diamond 2. From there I went from Diamond 2 up to Diamond 1, but after bouncing around in Diamond 1 a little bit, I was like, you know, I'll just switch over to Pure Spright and finish it out. So we did do the majority of the climb with this variant, but Pure Spright definitely helped carry us into Master past the finish line there. This deck I think could have done it with a little more time. I was getting a little impatient and I just wanted to get there a little more quickly. But we haven't changed the list at all, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because I really like where this list is at. Of course, in about a week or so we will be forced to change it, less than actually a week, because the Spright Jet will be going from 3 down to 2. Slightly annoying, but it's actually not that big of a deal at all for this deck in particular. I've actually played 2 Jet instead of 3 in the past, in past iterations of this deck. One iteration I even only played 1 copy, but I think that is a little bit too few. But I've even considered in this particular list cutting one of the Jet in order to play like a 3rd Imperm. I thought about Nibiru for a minute, but Nibiru I'm still very borderline of whether or not I think it's actually good in this meta. So I'd probably just play a 3rd Imperm, but yeah, I don't think the loss of the 3rd Jet will be anything too harsh at all. As far as like the list goes, again, I haven't really been updating it, again, just because I really like where it's at. I've still had people asking a little bit about Bystial Lubellion, particularly why we're not playing any branded continuous spell or trap cards in order to make use of it. As far as those go, Branded Regained, I've explained this in the past, but for those who haven't watched that video or don't remember or whatever, Branded Regained, this might seem like it's a natural fit for this deck because we are banishing light and dark monsters and while playing Bystials. The problem is Bystial Lubellion is really optimal to summon by sacking a Chaos Ruler after it's already summoned itself because it's been banished. Because that way you can bring it back with Assault Synchron. I mean, you can bring it back with Assault Synchron even if Chaos Ruler goes from the field to the graveyard, because Assault Synchron does work when it's tributed. The problem is that then when Chaos Ruler gets banished later, you won't have a way to bring it back, and then it'll stay banished for the rest of the duel. And you might need it on the follow-up turn. So it's definitely optimal to summon Lubellion by tributing Chaos Ruler when it's already summoned itself, then it gets banished, and then you summon it with Assault Synchron. And Chaos Ruler, believe it or not, is actually really the only way we have to banish cards in this deck, period. So in that regard, Branded Regained actually does not work with this deck at all. I mean, you can still summon Bystial monsters, but that also requires that you open them, which, to be fair, if you're opening Lubellion, you are, but also by that point, like, it's very specific niche use, and I don't want to devote a whole deck slot to it. Branded Beast I am a little more inclined to possibly devoting a deck slot to. I do think that the potential to have disruption is good, but it also requires you have a Bystial monster on the board, which most of the time we just don't end on. Our end board is already chocked full of both monsters, often ending on 4 or 5, sometimes even 6 monsters on our end board, and those all have negates already, and none of them are Bystials. So the Branded Beast also doesn't really end up doing a whole lot here, even though it might seem like it would. Bystial Lubellion's main use, actually it has 2, honestly, and this will answer another question that I've had in the comments as well, which is, with Cupid Pitch being one of our only lights, is that a bit inconsistent? Honestly, I haven't really had consistency issues between Cupid Pitch and Bystial Lubellion. Bystial Lubellion has 2 main functions in this deck, one of which is just to serve as a light to banish for Chaos Ruler a decent amount of the time, or to potentially find off Chaos Ruler as well, but also increase the consistency of opening with our Bystial cards. One thing that I have noticed, because I actually have run into people playing variants of this deck, mostly like OCG players, because this is actually a pretty popular OCG deck, but the one thing that I've seen a lot of people do is they'll use Bystial Lubellion, but they'll grab a Magnamhut. You want to be grabbing Saronir, actually, because I've actually seen an opponent do this, where they Lubellion for Magnamhut, but then later in the turn, they don't have another light monster in their graveyard to banish to summon the Chaos Ruler again. But if they had grabbed Saronir, because they then, of course, use the Magnamhut as a material, but if they had grabbed Saronir and then used that as a material instead, that would send a second Lubellion from the deck to the graveyard. Then they would have had a light for Chaos Ruler. So it's not only a matter of having Lubellion in your deck, but you also want to make sure that you're using Lubellion for Saronir, not Magnamhut. That seems a little counterintuitive, but it is the optimal play. I just grabbed Saronir off of Lubellion like literally 95% of the time. It's definitely the one you want to be opening with. And I think that it's usually optimal to do it that way. The only case I would really grab Magnamhut instead is if I already had like Assault Synchron plus Spright Blue in hand. Like if I already had a huge like combo set up already, then I would probably just grab the, not even a huge combo, just a way to get to Cupid Pitch. If you already have a way to do that, then you can probably grab Magnamhut and you're fine. But most of the time, Saronir does end up being optimal. Still really liking Sharnga, even though I don't actually summon the full Armor Master that often at all. I think still the level 2 tuner that can summon itself from the hand is an exceptionally powerful ability. It's the reason Assault Synchron is so good. Well, also the second effect, but it's mainly the first effect that makes Assault Synchron so good in that regard. As far as the extra deck goes, I have actually thought about dropping the Knightmare Unicorn. I literally just never summon this thing, even when I do go for the IP Masquerade, especially since adding in the Underworld Goddess, which I do love this edition. Since adding this in, you know, I pretty much always just summon this or Avermax, but even before then, I literally only summoned Avermax. Like, not literally, but it was very few that I summoned Knightmare Unicorn, and like, it was good. A lot of the time it's a desperation play that doesn't actually end up accomplishing all the things you want it to. So in that regard, I've been thinking about dropping this. I'd have to figure out what for. I've kind of been thinking about Almirage. This is very, very niche, but sometimes if you open Shinobi Necro plus one of your Bystial monsters, you can normal summon Shinobi Necro, link it off for the Almirage, and then banish it in order to special your Bystial. That'll bring the Shinobi Necro back, and then you can sync for 8 into the Chaos Ruler. But again, that's very, very niche case use there. Could also put in the Thunder Dragon Colossus again and make room for the Nemesis Corridor again, but like, I have not missed the Nemesis Corridor at all. Like, it's the same conclusion I came to when I was playing Punk Spright as well. It's that it's good, but it's very win more. It's not necessary at all, and even when you do manage to get it off and it's good, like, the Colossus very rarely, like, ends up mattering. Like, usually the, 4 negates plus a sprint to bounce you put up is already enough to get you there, so it's just win more. Again, not bad, but not necessary, so I don't think I'll be slotting it back in. I do think that this is just about where the list optimally would like to be. And yeah, that's pretty much where we're at. Let's go ahead and break the list down card by card, and then we'll take a look at some of our games. So we're on 3 Maxx, 3 Blackwing Sharnga, the Waning Moon, 1 Caligo Clockcrow, 1 Shinobi Necro, 2 Spright Blue, 3 Spright Jet, 1 Spright Red, 1 Spright Carrot, 3 Assault Synchron, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 Bystial Magnamhut, 3 Bystial Saronir, 1 Bystial Druiswarm, 1 Bystial Baldrake, 3 the Bystial Lubellion, 3 Tuning, 1 Pot of Prosperity, 2 Call by the Grave, 2 Spright Starter, and then 2 Infinite Impermanence is going to round out our main deck. For the extra deck, we're on 1 Herald of the Arclight, 1 Cupid Pitch, 1 Chaos Ruler, 1 Accel Synchro Stardust Dragon, 1 Blackwing Full Armor Master, 1 Baronne de Fluer, 1 Swordsoul Supreme Sovereign Sheng Ying, 1 Gigantic Spright, 1 number 38 Hope Harbinger Titanic Galaxy, 1 IP Masquerade, 1 Spright Elf, 1 Spright Sprind, 1 Knightmare Unicorn, 1 Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avermax, and then finally 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. There is our list. Let's look at some gameplay. Alright, our first opponent is going to be on Branded Bystial, I believe. A lot of Branded Bystial and Tearlaments in Diamond, and of course Sprites as well, but it is mostly Tearlaments and Branded Bystials. That's definitely the vast majority of what I played against here. So I'm going to be taking the second turn here, but we do open with a Maxx, so Definitely cannot complain about that. That's going to get our opponent to simply set a card and then pass back over to us. So here we actually don't have the ability to open with a Synchro combo, but we do still have quite a few opening plays here. So I'm going to start off with the Spright Starter. Going to use a Call By to stop my opponent from retaliating with a Maxx. That means we get to use this Maxx as some combo material here as well, so that's pretty nice. Potentially, we might use it. We have the Spright Blue, of course, coming out of the deck with the starter. Going to grab a Jet. Jet's effect is activating. Going to grab that second Spright Starter. Normal summoning the Maxx as indicated. There is the idea of holding it, but of course we can't use it during the next turn because of the Call by the Grave. So not much else we can do with it until our next turn, by which point the duel will probably be over one way or the other anyway. So like I said, we can just normal the Maxx. I'm going to use that with the Elf in order to make ourselves a Gigantic Spright, Gigantic F, in order to bring out the Spright Red. Now moving to battle phase. Going to battle with the Gigantic just to make sure we can get over the monster. We don't have lethal anyway, so it's fine. We can just go ahead and do that. Set the Imperm and the Spright Starter before passing back to our opponent. Now, I don't want to shotgun the starter for a Carrot here because I have this Druiswarm in my hand, and I want to make sure that I am able to get some use out of it before I just go for the starter here. So I'm gonna negate my opponent's Magnamhut just to force them to commit to their normal summon. They do with an Albaz. Gonna use an Imperm on that Albaz. And also now my opponent has a monster on the board, so now I can summon this Druiswarm here. Opponent's going to move to battle phase and battle over my Spright Red. That's completely fine, I don't care. They set a card before passing back over to me. During the end phase, I'm going to actually use the starter not for a Carrot, but for a Blue. This is the other reason I like to save the starters, that if you don't actually need it for the disruption, you can get some free extension out of it during the end phase. And my opponent's just going to concede and then give me the duel there. That was a bit of a premature concede, although I can understand why they did it, because they don't know that I'm on the Synchro variant, because I did not do anything even remotely close to the Synchro variant in this particular game. But that's kind of the cool thing about this deck that I really like. A lot of Synchro pile decks, if you brick, it really sucks because you just can't really do anything. But with this deck in particular, if you brick, you can often still just put out 2 level 2 monsters and do a Spright board and just have games like this where you don't even delve into the Synchro pile half of the deck, you just use Sprights. I've had some people ask, like, the punks allow for so much more Synchro options, wouldn't you rather play those over Sprights? And the answer is actually no, and this game is a perfect example of why, because again, I think the ability to have a follow-up if you get disrupted or have a bricked hand is far more important than expanding the ceiling of how many Synchro plays you can push out. So again, just an example of why I like this deck so much. There's that game. Let's go ahead and go into the next one here. So for this one, we're going to be up against Tearlaments. This is a pretty interesting list my opponent's got. They're playing a lot of techs, including a Winter Cherries, a couple of copies of Artifact Lancia, and they're playing like the branded beast with their bestial cards, even though they're not on very many branded cards themselves. So we get to go first here. We're going to start by opening with Pot of Prosperity. For those who are curious, the 3 that I banished with Prosperity... Oh, this is when I was testing Almirage. I did actually test Almirage for a little bit, so this is when I was doing that. So yeah, I banished Almirage here, and I played that over the... What did I play that instead of here? And what did I play over that here? Shoot, I'd have to go back and look at the list here, but... here, banishing the Underworld Goddess I don't think was the right call. I think I actually should have just banished the full Armor Master, but yeah, normally, sorry, I totally forgot that I actually did end up testing Almirage. Normally what I banish is Herald of the Arclight, full Armor Master, and Knightmare Unicorn. That's what I meant to point out, but of course I happened to pick a game here where I was doing some experimental stuff. The Prosperity revealed 2 Jets and a Saronir. I'm going to grab the Jet here. Going to activate one of my Spright Starters. Opponent's going to Maxx in response. Definitely not an ideal way for this game to start for me here. Still going to grab a Blue anyway and activate the Blue effect for a Red. And I am actually going to end up normal summoning the Red and then setting the Imperm and the Starter before passing over to my opponent. Again, not shotgunning the Starter here because I've got this Bystial Magnamhut in my hand that I could still potentially make use of. Opponent's going to special a Shiren by pitching a Shadal Beast and then milling 3. Shadal Beast will draw a card, that's fine. Opponent's going to normal summon an Albaz, set 3, and then move to battle phase. I guess my opponent's extra deck, I don't remember, even though I just looked at it. I guess it doesn't have a redoer in it, otherwise I think you would just overlay here. Also, they are on more branded stuff than I thought they were. I guess that's what I get for just glancing at the opponent's list there and making assumptions from that. But again, going to end phase starter for blue because we didn't actually end up needing to use the starter. Get to get a free extra material in there. Going to grab a carrot and then throw it onto the board here. Opponent's going to immediately chain the Soliac to try to negate the carrot. I am going to chain the carrot effect, so that way my opponent is not able to set up this Shiren here. I do have the Magnamhut for it, but you know, if I don't have to use the Magnamhut here, I'd rather not. Alright, here is the Cupid Pitch coming down, activating the effect here. A little bit risky playing into a couple of back row, but I think it's ultimately going to be fine. Like, if they don't have a card to discard, so I'm not scared of Super Poly. They've already used the Soliac. They don't have a card for Crime. There's honestly relatively few things that could be here, except for, like, yeah, Call By and maybe Imperm. And here we actually managed to have the Bystial Magnamhut in hand for the Call By, but my opponent's actually going to cross that designator, the Magnamhut. So the Magnamhut did actually manage to basically proc the rest of my opponent's back rows here, so that's nice. We don't get the Cupid Pitch search, but that's going to be fine. I'm not concerned about that at all, honestly. As you can see, we've already managed to find at least the Assault Synchron, and we still have our normal summon here, but I'm actually going to grab the Bystial Lubellion. And then, yeah, again, the Cupid Pitch is going to get negated here. Now we're going to use Bystial Lubellion's effect, sending it in order to grab a Saronir. Going to summon the Saronir here by banishing the Shadal Beast to my opponent's Herald, and then they just concede there. They technically weren't dead just yet. I guess they could have, like, maybe top-decked. If they're playing Branded Fusion, they could have top-decked that, but yeah, there were very few draws for them here. I did still have my Imperm face down as well, so very few options for my opponent left at that point. We do still have a couple more games to watch, so let's go straight into the next one here. Okay, I actually mixed the list up is what happened. This one is the game we're playing against tier limits that isn't playing, like, branded stuff. The last one was a branded tier limit deck, as of course we saw. Anyway, we're going to be going second here. This hand is looking pretty good. We did open with a Maxx, so of course that's always nice when you go second. And we actually do manage to potentially dissuade some plays here. Actually, my opponent's going to just go for the Diviner, sending an Agido, and then triggering multiple tier limits. Nope, I did not dissuade anything here. Definitely going to just use the Saronir to banish one of these tier limit fusers, and that'll force them to fuse for, well, they'll still fuse for Kikolos, but I actually didn't see that they milled Tomb early there. We actually managed to get pretty good mills here. We milled the Shinobi Necro and the Assault Synchron, which are definitely two of the best cards we could have hit. So, yeah, our opponent gets a Kikolos, which grabbed, was it a Soliac? I'm assuming it was a Soliac, yep. And one of those back rows is in fact going to be Soliac. Opponent's going to follow up with a Havness on our turn after we summon the Carrot and the blue. Let's see, the Havness send looks like Scream, Merly, and Grief. So, woof, good grief. That's going to be a bunch of relevant effects there. Yeah, definitely an uphill battle here, but definitely not an unwinnable game by any means either. It looks like the opponent's going for Kaleidoheart, which is actually a relief, honestly. I thought that a Rolcolos was going to happen here, and that would have been a lot more scary, to be honest. But this Baldrake is definitely really scary, too. So much so that I'm definitely just going to go ahead and use the Spright Red to stop that. Opponent's got the Soliac, though. They're going to go ahead and activate that in response. I guess they hadn't used the effect yet. I thought they had. Wait, did I Carrot? Hang on. Did I activate Carrot against Soliac without actually just sending it to the graveyard? No, I guess not, huh? Weird. Anyway. Alright, I get to summon a Baldrake of my own now when I'm searching off of the Lubellion here. This will allow me to banish that Shinobi Necro that got sent earlier. That's going to be very, very important because now that will allow me to go for my Synchro plays. Opponent did mill a Kelbeck, but thankfully they didn't hit anything too relevant. They do have a Mudora in here, which is a little bit scary. They did also get rid of my Caligo Clawcrow, which is a little annoying, but we didn't go for Cupid Pitch anyway, so... opponent's got the Baldrake effect for my Chaos Ruler, but it seems that someone is not aware of the effect of Assault Synchron, because if they were, they would have been able to have prevented this, what's about to happen here with the Mudora. I'm going to add a Sharnga here off the Chaos Ruler, and now I get to use Assault Synchron's effect. Yeah, if they had used that Mudora right when they sent it, they could have actually... put back my Assault Synchron that I couldn't have gotten back Chaos Ruler here. Opponent's going to actually activate a set, exchange the Spirit to invert our graveyards and decks, which is I think ultimately fine for me. It's like, it doesn't really matter for me in this case, honestly. And I don't think it allowed my opponent to do anything crazy here. Yeah, no, they didn't get anything relevant off of it, so... Yeah, this game looked really scary at first, but, you know, as you can see, perseverance is key. Definitely when it comes to laddering. Not just, you know, in the terms of the long haul, but even within a game as well. There were a lot of people who would have conceded during my opponent's turn when they were, or even like earlier when they were going off with like tier limit plays, but just playing to your last out is so important for this exact reason. Because like, you might not even be able to see like, you know, necessarily right off the bat like how winnable a game is. Like, this game looked really unwinnable at the start. Like, it looked like tier limit was just gonna steamroll all over me, but like, as you can see now, we have built up a huge board and we can actually attack for lethal. Great, yeah, this is definitely just lethal here. So the ability to push through that, like our opponent's multiple back row, multiple disruption, multiple summoning on our turn, and still have lethal there is very, very nice. And again, just why you want to always be playing through and playing out every single duel. We have one more game to show. Let's go straight into it here. And for our last game, we're up against Branded Tier Limit yet again, and this is a 60 card pile variant of it. Alright, going to be taking the first turn here, opening up, actually, this is almost the exact same hand we opened a couple duels ago with the 2-starter, the Prosperity. I think we had Lubellion as well? No, I think we just opened the Saronir in the last hand, I don't remember, but Prosperity is coming down. Let's see if this is actually the same extra deck. Okay, yeah, so this is what I usually send out Prosperity, the Herald, the Blackwing, and the Knightmare Unicorn. Again, I was experimenting with Almirage earlier, but it just ended up coming up often enough. Well, the problem is, like, it does come up with a Shinobi Necro line, but that's really it. Like, you'd have to put the Dark Charm or Gloomy for it to come up with, like, other cards as well, and that's, like, too much extra deck slots, I think, for very niche case cards. So here we're going to use Saronir to send Lubellion before going for the Chaos Ruler. I already revealed the Spright Blue, which I like to see, and the Assault Synchron as well. I think I'm just going to, end up grabbing that here. Gonna normal summon the Assault Synchron. Opponent's got a Bystial Magnamhut. Very poor timing for them to drop that. They very easily could have used that on my Chaos Ruler if they'd waited literally one more play, one more action. But I will definitely not oppose my opponent dropping the Magnamhut here. That's completely fine. Gonna send the Sprind, or use Sprind rather, to send the Shinobi Necro and then banish it. And my Cupid Pitch with the Chaos Ruler. Now I'm gonna sink for a Baronne de Fluer. Normally I would go for more of a line here, but I'm just going to Spright Starter after this anyway, so it's not too much more is going to be happening here. Alright, so here is the starter for the blue. Blue F is going to grab a red, because I already have the other starter in my hand. I think I already used Jet here too, didn't I? No, I just excavated it. If I didn't have the other starter in hand already, I definitely would have gone for a Jet there, but... yeah, this line's gonna be a little bit weird just using the Elf to get back the blue, but now we get to go for the Gigantic Spright, which will not only have, 3,200 attack points, but it'll also grab the Spright Carrot directly from our deck there. So this is definitely not a bad board to end on for not having Cupid Pitch be involved in our combo line at all. We still end on 3 negates and a bounce with Sprind, which is definitely par for the course for this deck to end on. Usually 3 to 4 negates plus a bounce, plus sometimes you have additional disrupts from the cards left over, like the Chaos, the Called By rather here, for the Bystial Lubellion. I am actually going to use the Baronne on this Druiswarm. That looks really weird to do that, but the reason I'm doing it is so that my opponent doesn't get a search off this Lubellion. If they do, they'll get another Bystial monster, and this also denies them the body of the Druiswarm. Druiswarm also only triggers when it goes from the field to the graveyard, unlike Saronir, so this way I won't lose any of my monsters. Opponent's going to go for the fusion deployment. I'm actually not going to be negating this with the Spright Carrot. I would rather wait for the Albaz, and then I get to actually bounce it with the Sprind here. I don't even have to use my red either. If they had gone for the Cartesia, then I could have used Spright Red to negate that as well. But either way, I'm definitely holding my Carrot for a potential Branded fusion. I will use red on the Aliber here. That way I can negate and destroy it. Plus my opponent only has 1 card left in hand. which is actually the branded fusion, but again, now I have the Carrot here still left over, so I can go ahead and negate that. You just always want to keep that branded fusion in mind when you're playing against branded decks. Just always assume they have it, and always have a negate for specifically the branded fusion. If you're holding an Ash Blossom, it's usually right to save that for the branded fusion. In this case here, I definitely held the Spright Carrot as long as possible so that I can make sure I negated the branded fusion. That's the other reason I used the Spright Red when I did, is because it not only allowed me to both negate and destroy the Owlbear, but at that point I know that my opponent only has one card left in hand. I don't know what it is, and if it's branded fusion, I have a way to stop it. So yeah, there are these games here from, these were all from like within Diamond 2 and Diamond 1. I think actually, no, these were all from Diamond 1. Where again, I bounced back and forth a lot before just switching back over to Pure Spright finally. But yeah, happy to finally be up to Master, especially with some of my favorite archetypes / playstyles of decks, that being Sprites and Secret Piles. But that's going to go ahead and do it. Thanks for watching. Let's move now to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack, you'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation. You do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot, as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now. So without further ado, this is Accel. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.